Hi, and welcome to the Cengage video series, Teaching with Impact in Psychology, where we discuss some of the challenges facing the higher education community and share hints and ideas for how to engage and support your students and consider the resources you can use to deliver your course. My name's Laura, and I'm the Senior Marketing Manager for our Psychology Learning Solutions here at Cengage. Today, I'm joined by Tim Rako and Hanny van Hoof. Tim is Reader in Psychology at King's College London, with over 20 years experience of supervising research and teaching research methods to psychology students. He's also the co-author of the first EMEA edition of Research Methods for the Behavioural Sciences. He's published over 50 research articles in more than 25 different academic journals, is an associate editor for the journal Thinking and Reasoning, and is the principal fellow of the Higher Education Academy. Hanny is lecturer at the Faculty of Science, University of Amsterdam in the Netherlands. She's also the co-author with Bruce Goldstein of the EMEA edition of Cognitive Psychology, now in its second edition. She's published many research papers in internationally renowned journals and is an expert in the recording and analysis of event-related brain potentials. She's been a long-standing member of the Psychophysiology Society, and since 2009 has been focused on the development and teaching of courses integrating cognitive and biological sciences. Tim, Hanny, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In this session, we're focusing on how to integrate online experiments into different psychology courses. And it's really great to be joined by both Hanny and Tim, who might use a tool like CogLab, but from very different perspectives. So Hanny, would you like to start us off on the importance to you and your students of experience with experiments?
Yes, I find it very important that students know what the basis is for the theories. Where do they come from? What is the evidence actually for the theories? So in that sense, they can read, of course, read about all the experiments, but I think it's very important that they actually experience how those experiments, how they look like, what the results are, and what you can learn from the results. And I think CogLab is for that purpose really an excellent tool. So they get better knowledge about the design of experiments and also about the results and how to interpret those results. So I think that's actually one of the core things that I like them to teach and to in the area of cognitive psychology. So yes, I use that a lot, and I think it's very important.
Great, thank you. And Tim, same question to you.
Yeah, I think on my research methods modules, I'm using CogLab to illustrate particular features of experimental design. And in the same way that Hanny's described, you know, when you get your hands on an experiment and you actually do it as a participant, I think there can be some insights into that feature of the method that you don't pick up on if you're just reading about it. And so we'll often take a CogLab task, you know, students do it as a pre-seminar activity, and then in the seminar they decode some aspect of the method. So, you know, so if, you know, there was this feature, which hopefully you now understand because you've done the experiment, if that feature wasn't there, we'd not be able to conclude what we can, you know, what we had concluded. So, or to kind of, you know, pose that more as a question for sort of students to problem solve that.
And Tim, can I ask, do you also use it to actually teach statistics on it as well? So that do you involve statistics or?
A little bit. So sometimes I'm a great believer in using lots and lots of data sets, and usually authentic data sets rather than kind of made up numbers for students to analyze. So I always like it when students have, you know, they've got some appreciation of where the numbers come from. You know, they're not just analyzing numbers in the abstract. And so, you know, using data from one of the CogLab tasks can be a nice way to do that. You know, we're looking at confidence intervals for these means. you know where these scores came from because you've done the CogLab task. Those sorts of kind of features, or you understand what these different conditions are because you've done the task. I don't necessarily do that lots because I've got lots of data sets from lots of different places, but that can be quite a nice feature of a system like CogLab. I think it's that ability to have experienced it, can illuminate understanding of different aspects.
Yes, I definitely agree. And I also think that it's quite nice for them to get an appreciation about individual differences. That's also why I ask it to them, because sometimes their own results do not look like the average results. And that's quite nice to get that discussion started. And I thought maybe that's also quite a nice link to actually, link with statistics, is that you do not just look at averages, but about variation. And I don't do that as a cognitive psychology teacher, but it comes, it arrives there, and I do point it out, but I don't go any further than that. But it's quite a nice feature, I think, that you can show individual and average results, and also global results.
Yeah, I think that's a really astute point, Hanny, because often the feedback we get from students using CogLab is how valuable they find seeing their own results in the context of the global data. And I imagine that speaks to what you've just said about individual differences. Maybe it gives them that moment of kind of, well, this is how I did it, but actually there's all this, there's so much more data here, and this is how my results kind of compare, and maybe that speaks a bit to what Tim is saying as well, as to kind of, research is made up of a wide number of participants, and we're making assumptions based on the overall data set, but within that there are individuals who have done these experiments.
Yes. And also what Tim said about the experience of doing the experiment. What is it, to mentally rotate something, or the attentional blink that you think, oh, okay, that goes really fast, and that kind of stuff. That's also very important. Nice.
Do you think they get an understanding of the concept that they just wouldn't be able to have without taking part themselves? I know within the textbook that you authored, there are there's boxes, there's demonstrations, there's ways of suggesting students take part in things, and it's that doing process that is so important to the way we learn. The experiments are a step up. Demonstrations, they are fairly simple, and it's like imagine, and it's about visual illusions, but then it's not about experiments. So the experimental setup and the design of an experiment that you get from CogLab, and you don't get that from the demonstrations. And it's really, I think like I said before, you can read about it, but if you do it yourself, you really get a much better understanding of how those experiments look like. And I think that applies whether you're trying to learn the cognitive concept or the research, the methods, and the kind of the science behind it.
Yeah.
Tim, do you find very much that it's that hands-on experience that your students kind of value in being able to kind of take part in something? And then maybe you talked about them kind of having follow-up questions of what they find out, and once they've taken part in one of the experiments.
I mean, I think you always say, oh, you write a method and you describe exactly what happened in the study. Actually, that's incredibly difficult, to sort of describe every single feature in a study in a method. And so, conveying exactly what happened from the written page is actually quite difficult. And so having the hands-on experience provides it just provides a richer insight into what actually happened in the study.
And do you think it makes that point to your students as well, for them when they need to come to write up methods and things like that? Maybe they see quite how difficult it is to put something on paper compared to the reality of how it actually happened.
Yeah, I think possibly. It's a little difficult to say, but yeah. So certainly it's a difficult task. I think as soon as you start trying to do it, you realise how difficult it is. So.
Yeah, I can add on to that. It's like, so I teach cognitive psychology, but I also do a lot of experiments as well in a different setting, also at the university. But so where they have to write research reports, and then I think the CogLab experiments also, because if you look at research papers, method section is so densely written, it's a lot of information. And once they do an experiment themselves, they actually can make that translation. Okay, what is written in this one simple paragraph is actually, you know, quite a lot of big part of how the experiment looks like. I think, yeah, it helps them also, I think, read research papers, especially the method section, you know, is how that, yeah, because that's quite tough sometimes for students to learn and to read about. And I think doing the experiment and seeing how that experiment translates into a method section, that's quite nice.
Great, thank you. I think that's a really it was a really interesting kind of deep dive into the benefits to students from kind of different perspectives of taking part in these online experiments. And actually it sounds like it's fundamental to, you know, lots of different courses actually, that they have the opportunity to get involved and to take part and to kind of really analyze the outcomes. So thank you both for your insights on that. I found that really fascinating. I hope everyone watching did as well. If you've any suggestions for more topics or you'd like to get involved, please get in touch via our website. Thank you again, Tim and Hanny, for that really interesting discussion.